What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Kaulig Nation, your one-stop shop for all things Kaulig Nation, Dinger Nation, SVG Nation. Neither of those guys are racing today, so we picked a convenient time to do this. It's actually a little bit of a test stream because we are going to do this at Watkins Glen and hopefully at the Roval as well. Might nitpick some other races on the schedule, but joining me tonight, 169 laps into the Richmond option tire race. It's my co-host, partner in crime, Ryan. What's going on, man?
Hey, Sean. It's tell you, it's kind of cool going live. Being able to interact with everybody. Halfway through a night race on a Sunday, which is pretty interesting too. Not something we do very often in terms of the NASCAR world, but I really like these Sunday night races. I think they bring in a good audience, and frankly, it allows me to do stuff all day. Hell, I was at the beach earlier today, and I got to come home, get to watch the race, and talk NASCAR with you. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, right before the commercial break there, I was watching Daniel Hemrick blow past people and looked like he was about to blow past Kyle Larson too. Obviously, we're going to get into all the Kaulig stuff. There's a lot going on there. Feel like we definitely have one of the names confirmed. I will always hesitate before saying 100%, but 99.9% we know one of the big changes coming at Kaulig Racing. There's obviously been a lot of Trackhouse news over the last little bit. If you've seen our thumbnail, we have AJ and the man of the hour, if you will, who we will address shortly if you don't recognize him visually. Then we have 4 question marks because we feel that the 2 guys on the left are basically all but confirmed for Kaulig Racing next year, which leaves upwards of 4 other spots that have no locking, although one might say Josh Williams, but we will discuss that as the episode goes. And we're going to be going back and forth between discussing the race as it's on, which, look, I've been highly critical of short track racing with the new car, but obviously there's a significant thing. Oh, that's not good. Oof. That was a massive blunder. Assuming by now you've seen it, Ryan, that Martin Truex pit stop could not have gone more wrong than it did.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got the race up on my second monitor here. I'm talking to you with my primary monitor, and they just cut to commercial. So I don't know if my commercial is synced up the same with the broadcast versus what I'm watching on the stream. But I did not see Martin Truex's blunder. I actually see Hamlin in pit road now. But I find it interesting that, especially at a track like Richmond, where you're pitting multiple times in a stage on a track as small as Richmond, that it's very easy to make a pit road mistake. And if you make a pit road mistake, your race is basically over. You're going to go at least a lap down, and it is really hard to get those laps back at Richmond. But I tell you, Martin Truex, he's had an interesting year. He's been fast as hell all year long, but I swear they shoot themselves in the foot week in and week out with something, whether it's a pit road penalty, a pit road mistakes. He gets wrong pit strategy, comes down, bad pit stop, blows the motor. He's blown a couple engines this year. Truex has had nothing but bad luck this year.
Big thank you to everybody joining us tonight. I know we gave you guys and gals out there basically no notice we were doing this. I just kind of woke up this morning and I watched practice and qualifying, practice specifically for the option tire. And both of us are, I won't call us, big time F1 guys, but we do like F1 and we screw around on the video game here and there. But I just thought to myself, this race might actually be interesting with the way it was working out in practice. And figured, why not come on here? We already had a few topics that we needed to discuss in videos, and why not just do it in a live stream? So if you're just tuning into this after the fact and wondering where we're going to talk about certain news pieces, the video will get time-stamped afterwards. If you're joining us live, then sit back, watch the race with us, chat. You want to talk Kaulig, Trackhouse, silly season? We're going to be discussing it all at length here. Dude, what have you thought of the option tire so far?
Well, so I just go back to the All-Star race when they tried this in North Wilkesboro, and I was not very impressed. I was like, man, they're all running it. Like, this is just, the better of the two tires. That's all they're going to run, and it's going to be pretty boring. But with Richmond, the tire fall off, the age of the asphalt here at this track has made a big, noticeable difference. It's clear that the softer compound has got a lot more grip than the primary, but its fall off isn't too bad, but they are blowing through the field. I mean, watching Suarez go from 20th to 1st was impressive. Watching Michael McDowell start dead last and drive up to 8th was really impressive. So the strategy that I think is going to be employed here over the next 200 or so laps, when you choose to use that option tire is going to probably determine if you win this race or even if you finish in the top 10 in this race, because it's all about using it at the correct time. I will say I do wish the tire had a bit more fall off. It's great that they can blow through the field, but at the same token, I would love to see them fall back a little bit more. But maybe we'll see that on a longer green flag run. The stage 2 kind of being broken up into chunks the way it has, I think hasn't allowed the variance of the tires to show themselves yet. So I really want to see that. Hopefully that'll happen in stage 3.
Yeah, in the heat of practice, it was falling off quicker, but obviously the sun's not really hitting the track and lots of cloud cover, and it's going to be nighttime soon, so there's going to be even less fall off. I do think the people that conserve their tire are going to be at an advantage. However, you're not guaranteed to get a yellow. So depending on when you come in to put, that on, you might not make up the ground that you need to. Suarez did his after a stage break. And by the way, Suarez back to primes now, still in P2.
Yeah, he's held his track position, and we've seen several more cars here in the second part of the stage go to the options. I saw Todd Gilliland was on the option. And of course, my feed just went to commercial, so I can't see the leaderboard now. Down in like 8th, 9th, 10th. But there was like 3 cars on the options that have worked their way into the top 10 here in the middle portion of the stage. So yeah, it's given them that track position. Now, obviously, they're going to pay for that later in the race when they don't have it. But again, Richmond is a track of truly, once you have the track position, it is hard to lose it. So I really think this is going to pay dividends for Suarez. He won't win the race, but I really think he took a 20th place car and is going to get a top 10 out of this race.
Just went to P1 during commercial break.
Who did?
Suarez on the primes. So he has benefited greatly from that. Not only has he not fallen back to 20th, dude's leading the race right now.
Yeah, I will say it's
with an option tire left.
And now we're getting more pit stops. Like Tyler Reddick is still on older tires. Suarez, Bell, and Larson, or Suarez and Bell are on the same strategy. Larson's on slightly newer tires, but he's doing a one-stop strategy. And Reddick is still out on old tires. So this is the one thing. Even though the Richmond is not necessarily the best, it's called the action track. It hasn't been a lot of action recently, but this is definitely shuffling the field and making this portion of the race much more enjoyable. And I am curious. Yeah, I see somebody said Keselowski's on the option tire. Where was he running before he put on the option tire? Was he running around 15th or so, or was he closer to the top 10 when he put on the optionettes? I am curious to see how well those mid-pack cars are moving forward.
I'm not sure where he was, and I think he's having some fall off now because he was driving it harder than what Suarez was. but about 10 laps ago or so, he was running lap times like 6, 7 tenths faster than the guys on primes.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they're
In
running.
traffic, too.
Oh, look at this 3 wide. Man, I am enjoying this right now. The cars that are on fresh tires are just blowing by everybody else. It's somebody's going to eventually make a mistake and somebody's going to wreck here before this night's down.
Do you think it's been a success so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say this is probably going to be the best show we're going to see out of this because, like anything with NASCAR, you give these crew chiefs, opportunities to dissect and look at the data and see when the fall off was, when the successful play was. When this comes back, and I guarantee you we're going to see these options again, probably sooner than later if I had to guess. The teams are going to get smarter. They're going to know when to use them. They're going to, I think somebody mentioned Hamlin and Bell are going to hold on to him until the late stage 3. It's probably going to lose some of its effect because everybody's going to start using them in a more, I would say, correct way. But at least in this race, I am thoroughly enjoying what it's given us.
Yeah, like I said off the top, I'd like to see them, if they're going to, obviously, Richmond, the big news, not made official yet, but is they're going to lose the date next year, likely to Mexico. Still remains to be seen whether Montreal is going to get on the schedule as well or not. But I just think with all the short tracks, maybe not a Bristol, I don't know if they would apply this to Bristol or not, the option tire. I'd be curious what their take is on that, but I'd like to see them go up to 3 sets, a 3-5 split, to make it a little more advantageous to use earlier on. But we see certain cars selecting to go to them. But I'll tell you what, once you lose it, once you start to fall off, you fall like a rock.
Yeah, I want to see more of that. But and again, that's from the NASCAR perspective. I think we're going to see them learn, and Goodyear's going to learn what they need to continue to do to create the difference between an option and a prime. This is a learning experience for them too. So I think they will all agree that so far the option tire is probably holding on a little too well, and they'll figure out a way to add some degradation. But remember, if you go back to the spring Bristol race, they lucked into tire fall off, tire wear that they still don't know how that happened. And there were cars falling, the tires were going down to the cords and they had a lot of tire issues, but it created great racing. So I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I would highly suspect that they bring the option tire to Bristol, but at a track like Martinsville as well. Oh yeah, that's going to really help, because Martinsville's been so bad with this next gen car. They're just between the gear shifting and everything that goes into the wider tire base. Martinsville's been really
three
bad.
wide again.
Dude, yeah, I love this. And we just saw Kyle Busch get his lap back. So
yeah, the natural way, the old school way.
Well, I think he's on softs.
He is. Yeah.
He's taken the opportunity to put on the softs to get his lap back. So that is really smart move from Kyle Busch.
To everybody who's tuning in, oh wow, Cindy from Newcastle, Australia. I believe I've seen you in our comment section before. It's got to be mega. I was going to say late, but I'm guessing early in the morning for you. It's only 7:35 p.m. Eastern here on the East Coast. Ryan and I are going to stay with the race as long as we can. I got a couple of kids and animals, so I'll stick with the stream as long as I can. My goal is to get to the end of the race. We're already halfway over. But we'll see how it goes. And we got lots to talk about, Kaulig news to talk about, Trackhouse stuff, silly season stuff. Things are falling into place. Some SVG and Trackhouse related stuff, SVG and Kaulig related stuff too that we talked about in the video earlier as Kyle Busch gets ready to pass and completes the pass on Ty Dillon there. I guess the option tires don't really matter. Kaulig's still terrible at Richmond. But that is one thing I realized during practice is it's not like you switch to the option tire and you can keep the setup the same. You got to change the balance of the car um, compared to what it is on the prime tire. So it's not like you're going in just for a tire change. You also have to change the car to match the tire,
Yeah.
which is why practice was so important.
Yeah, and the thing, especially with this new next gen car, they can't adjust as much as they used to. Um, they can still adjust their track bar, and obviously air pressures, but that's really about it. They used to have a wedge option. They can't really do the wedge anymore, and anything they do to the geometry takes too much time. So the adjustments that they have to make, are pretty limited during the race. They probably had to build in some, happy mediums, happy medium setup to try to make both of them run as good as they can. But honestly, with the difference in tire wear, it's clear. It doesn't even if it's matter if it's driving well, they're still fast. And to your point about Trackhouse, Daniel Suarez just got a contract extension this week. This is something I know we've been kind of waiting on from a Trackhouse perspective, if they're going to lock in Daniel Suarez or if they were going to decide to go in a different direction. And here he is, fresh off his, new signed contract and leading this race and using the strategy to get to the front, but now that he's there, he's holding it over, JGR. So very impressive run for Suarez. A little confidence goes a long way. Yeah, it's starting to get dark too. I'm curious to see, now that the lights are fully in play and the sun is setting, how this is going to change the setup of the car. You mentioned they had to change the setup for the tires, but now they're going to have to adjust again for these cool track temps.
And then how much do you got to adjust for the tires on the cooler track temps? So a lot of curveballs here. They didn't practice that night, right? So before they went to commercial there, Suarez was actually gapping Christopher Bell. So, and again, prime on prime. JB says Denny for the win. I think he shocked a lot of people yesterday with his pole. He was the slowest of the cars going into the final round and nabbed the pole. John and Cindy O'Brien, is there a chance you guys are related, husband and wife, brother and sister, or just two O'Briens from across the pond enjoying some morning NASCAR? I guess for you guys and gals out there, NASCAR is to you what F1 is for Ryan and I when we wake up early in the morning on a weekend, and we're watching Monaco bright and early or one of the other tracks.
Yeah, I tell you, and I do like watching F1, but getting up at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. Eastern on my Sundays, not usually my idea of a good time, but I do it more often than not. So definitely appreciate you guys tuning in at 9:30 in the morning your time to chat with us, watch the race. That's always a good thing. So
we weren't sure how this would go. We want to do more of these. Obviously, schedule prohibiting. We're both busy dudes, but Ryan travels for work, and sometimes it might be possible, sometimes it might not. We're definitely not going to do it every week, but there's some tracks that we're going to be looking at, highlighting, and definitely trying to do streams for, whether it's the Cup Series or Xfinity. I just thank you for coming out and spending some time with us. It really is appreciated. And for those of you that are here right now, please take a moment, click the like button, please. It really helps the channel out. Wonderful Google Analytics that want you to do all those little tiny things to make things work. So if you can give us a thumbs up, that would be appreciated. And if you're new here, feel free to consider subscribing to the channel. 95% of our content is Kaulig based. But even with SVG looking like he's heading to Trackhouse, Trackhouse is a team we cover often because of their relationship with Kaulig, which sounds like it might be continuing into next year, and we'll discuss that in just a little bit with a different driver. We'll see if that domino does indeed fall. But our SVG content is not going to go anywhere. We're going to continue to follow him. Some people feel like I'm a little hard on him. I just try to be honest. Ryan and I are both SVG guys, and of course, the first time we do a stream like this during a race, there's no AJ or SVG to be found. So, uh, good to give it a test though.
Tell you, yeah, this is one of those races where I don't even know where the Kaulig cars are running right now. I think they're down in 31st or 35th or something like that at the moment. Like it's 31st for Hemrick, and Ty Dillon broke the top 30. He's running 29th. Just truly, this is one of those races I just chalked up as it is what it is. We'll move past it and go on to Michigan next week, where I think they'll run a little bit better. So not too concerned about their performance tonight, just enjoying watching the race. Watching honestly a pretty competitive race. And again, this is something with Richmond that I do enjoy. The tire fall off is pretty intense. But yeah, to your point about Hamlin earlier, Hamlin's really good at this track. He he won in the spring. He's got, how many wins does he have here? Does he have 5 wins at Richmond? Like, this is his home track. He wants to win here. He almost always finds a way to be competitive, but I feel like this is probably Christopher Bell's night. He's been the best JGR car so far this evening. He's got 3-second gap over Hamlin at the moment. So obviously things can change. We'll see how they run on the prime tire or on the option tire when they get to those here in a little bit later. But I kind of got a feeling this will be a race for Bell. But yeah, it's just fun to watch, and I know we don't have a lot of our main fan favorites in this race, but it's what I love NASCAR. There are so many exciting stories, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be our guys at the front. And honestly, Sean, I know you and I are used to this. AJ running Cup, he's running 20th most weeks. He's not on our television screen all that often. So we have to find other aspects of the race to find enjoyable for those brief moments we actually get to see our guys on the screen.
I promise that's not a ghost right now. It's a reflection of my wife clowning around, a shadow, if you will. But yeah, hang on. I'm going to pull myself off cam for a second. Still here, though. Don't sleep on Hocevar. Hocevar was very good in practice, quite good in qualifying, and seems to be running really well right now, too.
Yeah, where is he? Oh yeah, Hocevar is just outside the top 10 right now, running 11. And I know that's something I think we're going to touch on here in a bit, is the performance of Spire Motorsports, right? Whether it's Carson Hocevar has exceeded expectations by a mile. Corey LaJoie is completely lost his ride, right? He's not been good.
Sounds like he's Truck Series bound, if you believe in what Couch Racer says.
Yeah.
Sounds like he might be replacing a driver that's going to Kaulig Racing in the Xfinity Series.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't really know where they were thinking about he would be going in the Truck Series, but that would be an interesting
ride
move.
They connected him to. So whether it comes to be, we'll see. But to me, that's the right step for him.
Yeah, Corey LaJoie. I mean, honestly, if he was given an opportunity in a good Xfinity car, I have no doubt he would run pretty well. It's easy to look at his record and say, yeah, he's been around for a decade and he's got no top 10s on any other track besides the super speedway. And obviously those are the facts. That's fair. But he truly hasn't driven for any good team. So, whether it's a good Xfinity Series team or a good Truck Series team, I really do think he will be okay. But taking that step back is what he needs to do. Go the John Hunter Nemechek route of rehabilitating his career and slowly working his way back up. Because if he performs well in that truck, which we know is race winning, Christian Eckes has won the regular season points for the trucks. He has 3 wins competitively in the top 5 week in and week out. So he's definitely going to be potentially stepping into a truck that's capable of winning a Truck Series championship. So he's got to show that he can do that.
For sure. I mean, at the end of the day, even if you're running South Par equipment, you gotta, as long as it's not, back of the pack stuff, and some weeks it will be, you still got to find a way to be able to pull in top 15s and top 10s. Like, I don't have the number in front of me, but even his top 15s on non super speedway races are not good in his Cup Series career. Very minimal. Um, by the way, Christopher Bell closing in on Daniel Suarez just now, by the way, and he was running much better all through the weekend than Daniel Suarez has been. That just gives you an idea how much that strategy was. And we're going to get to Kaulig Racing talk here at about the 30-minute mark of the live stream, so in about 2 minutes. But gives us time to end the stage, see how it goes. I think Suarez is going to hold on for the stage win. Can't see him giving up that much space, but the impressive part about the option tire, man, and what it's created here is the last couple of Richmond races I've watched with the Cup Series. It's a lot of single file all the way around the track, or cars trying to pass a car, but they can't complete the pass. And you just got cars everywhere. It's a parking lot out there right now.
Yeah, this is really fun TV to watch. Even here on the final stage, we're 3-4 wide here, running. And these are positions on the track, right? Like, these cars are fighting hard. For that last stage point, 9th, 10th, 11th. I mean, Truex and Elliott are damn near wrecking each other to the line here. That was really good finish to this stage. So that was fun. And Hocevar, as you mentioned, 9th, really good stage for him. So, and to Chevy's
Truex
question,
just bumped him during the yellow.
Yeah, they'll be fine. I've one thing about.
I don't know.
Yeah, look at that.
Hocevar for that.
Elliott can be really whiny sometimes. Like, that's just hard racing right there. That's good stuff. I hope they continue that into stage 3. Into Chevy's question about Riley Herbst. First off, I really don't think Riley Herbst is that good of a racing driver. He's done really well this year in the Xfinity Series. He's certainly made big strides. I mean, if you asked me this question this time last year, I would have been telling you dude should be out of NASCAR altogether. Now he's won Las Vegas last year. He obviously just won Indy a couple weeks ago. So he's turned it around. I have got to give him his props for that. But again, this is kind of what we talked about, in our previous shows. The top drivers in the Xfinity Series making that jump to NASCAR's Cup Series, it's a jump, guys. Yes, Rick Ware, he's driving a Rick Ware car, which is not good. Full stop on that. But you can be the best Xfinity Series driver on planet Earth, and you go up to the Cup Series and look like a complete fool. I mean, Chase Briscoe, a couple years ago, he won 8 races in the Xfinity Series, came into the Cup Series and didn't sniff a top 20. Noah Gragson won 6 races 2 years ago, went to the Cup Series, lost his ride halfway through the year. Yes, there are some extracurriculars there, but he was terrible last year.
And the other thing they're battling, we don't know how much they're going to use this option tire moving forward, but prior to its birth here at Richmond, this is a car that just has a hard time passing.
Yeah, passing's hard, guys. And the cream of the crop, whether you're the JGR cars, whether you're, the Penske cars, obviously Hendrick, unless you're driving for one of those 3 teams, it's really hard to qualify in the top 10. It's even harder to finish in the top 10. So I think and for these rookies that are coming in, the Xfinity platform and the Cup platform are nowhere close. So you look at a guy like Riley Herbst, and it's a little bit of everything. I think his talent isn't as good as some of the other drivers, but also, he competitively, he doesn't know this car as well as the other drivers, and it's just, he's out to lunch. And it takes a couple years. I think it takes the better part of 2 or 3 years to really get your feet wet at the Cup level and be competitive. So
Let's talk about Riley Herbst, though. He's been in the news, so I know we wanted to get to Kaulig, and we will. But Riley Herbst is one of those dominoes that we were waiting to fall. seemed like it was just shoo-in he was going to 2311, which probably surprised some people. Every time I log on to social media, people are up in arms about why is it Corey Haim. Well, Riley Herbst brings quite a bit of funding. So that's why 2311 had interest in him. However, pardon me, trying not to burp on cam. Um, it seems to have, I won't say fallen apart, but a few reputable people put out this week that deal's nowhere close to done. And if you went back a week ago, everyone was saying that deal is basically a shoe-in. And Ryan and I, again, this is speculation on our part, but Ryan and I the other day were speculating that, well, Riley Herbst is a Ford driver. Manufacturers get involved in these deals a lot to try to keep one of their guys in one of their cars, especially if there's funding included, right? So there's another team, another Ford team, who has an open spot, and that is Front Row Motorsports, who are miles better than they were a couple years ago. And he's already driven some races for them. I could see that being the landing spot, dude.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I didn't even really cross my mind that Front Row Motorsports would be, a consideration for Riley. I mean, as you said, it's every major pundit. We're talking people that really know their stuff. Bob Pockras, for being the leading guy that's been calling that out, but also, oh gosh, what's the gentleman's name from The Athletic? Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. I mean, these guys that are really in the know at the Cup level have basically been penciling in Riley Herbst at 2311 for the last couple months. And, again, yeah, he's got Monster on the side of his car, but a lot of that has to do with his family, who happens to own a big chain of gas stations down in the Florida area. And they've got a partnership with Monster, and they've got some business deals that'll give them a lot of funding. And 2311 just made sense. They're going to go to the third charter, assuming they get the charter deal signed. That's the landing spot. And then you're like, hey, man, what about Front Row? And I was like, yes, that makes sense. Front Row makes sense. He's a Ford driver. He's been a Ford driver for several years. And he has improved immensely in the last 12 months. And let's be honest, Front Row Motorsports, even as a tier 1 Ford team, probably doesn't need as much cash as 2311 as a Toyota team would. So I think from a money standpoint and from a Ford relationship standpoint, going to Front Row Motorsports makes a lot of sense for him. And let's just, in pretend world, say he does go to Front Row Motorsports. That removes a seat for Zane Smith. And Zane Smith has been a topic of discussion for quite some time.
Let's be honest, that domino has probably already fallen. And I know I don't see anybody in the chat mentioning this at the moment, but we've seen it in some of our videos. We see it online with a lot of the discourse. People were connecting Zane to FRM. FRM basically said that they'd be interested in Zane too. However, the problem with that is Zane is a contracted Trackhouse driver. Here's where we're going to start talking about Kaulig Racing at the 3620 mark. And that is Zane has multiple years left on the Trackhouse deal. Trackhouse, it would seem, it's not official yet, is going to go with Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, and Mr. Shane Van Gisbergen next year, aka SVG. However, Suarez's extension was not your typical big team NASCAR extension for a guy who still has a lot of racing left. It was a 1-year deal. That's it, a 1-year deal. So the odds of Trackhouse then turning around and releasing Zane Smith, to me, are very, very slim at that point. Meaning you're probably not loaning him out to a different manufacturer. That doesn't make sense for information sharing. Not that it hasn't been done before. Chris Buescher's the one example I can think of where it was done. But, to me, this reads, I would say there's a 90% chance, I go that high, that Zane Smith is Kaulig Racing bound. Now, whether it's a Cup Series ride or an Xfinity ride, I have no idea. I would assume it's a Cup Series ride, but I wouldn't stamp it, you know. Um, they might feel like he would benefit from a year of Xfinity, but to me, you've already run a year of Cup. He's starting to turn his season around a bit. My guess is he's in one of those Kaulig Cup Series cars next year. He also brings a little bit of funding, although Trackhouse would more than likely handle all the funding on whatever car that he's driving. But yeah, Zane Smith, to me, Ryan, is more than likely Kaulig bound, and that falls from the Daniel Suarez domino. And then we also, there's another domino that to talk about in a bit. But what are your thoughts with Zane Smith? Do you think he's Kaulig bound? Where would you put the percentages on that as we get a very aggressive restart
Yeah.
here to
Sorry,
begin stage 3?
I was fully invested in this restart here. Yeah, they're 4 wide. Suarez, well, everything Suarez gained in that stage 2 seems to be going out the window here. He's getting ping ponged around, it looks like. Yeah, but just to Zane Smith's standpoint, I've been without any shred of evidence, just I felt like Zane Smith was going to be a Kaulig driver. And I felt that way for a little while, to be truthful. It just made sense. Obviously I understand, Trackhouse and Kaulig are not partners. They do not have a full, partnership agreement. It's a business transaction. That's the way it was this year with SVG and the Xfinity series. But it's clear that they have a good working relationship. And they've worked to, they've got the pit crews to, kind of coming out of the same pool of pit crews. They got one kind of academy where they all work together. Obviously Justin Marks drove a Kaulig car last year in the Xfinity series. That relationship is good. And when we look at the options of where Zane Smith could land in 2025, the options just didn't make a lot of sense for any other team besides Kaulig. If the decision was SVG, which it seems like the indications all point that SVG is going to be in that third Trackhouse car, now that we know that Suarez is locked in, that Zane Smith has to go somewhere, and it's clear Spire is moving in a different direction. They're trying to build their own brand, and I know, Sean, you've hammered this point home for a while that you really want Kaulig to start building their own brand. And continuing to loan out drivers isn't the best way to do that. But when we look at where the open seats are left, Front Row Motorsports, Kaulig Racing, Rick Ware Racing, and 2311 Racing are the only 4 seats available at the moment.
One Chevy team. That's it.
And he's not going to 2311, and it's a Chevy team, and we are the last Chevy team standing. Like, so I really do feel he's going.
Sorry, we're having some connection issues
Yeah,
here, everybody, but see if we can sync up now. Can you see me and hear me okay, Ryan?
Yep.
All right. Zane has some funding, but not enough to secure a 2311 ride.
Right. And again, like that Advent Health, which has been on the side of his Spire car a decent amount this year, was enough for Front Row, was enough for Spire, and frankly would be enough for Kaulig, I have no doubt. But it is clear anytime you're dealing with a Joe Gibbs car or by proxy a 2311 car, they're looking at $20 million of funding, and that's a hard number. That's we're not pulling that number out of our butt. That kind of came out a week or so ago that 23. Oh, Martin Truex has a tire issue. That they need $18 million to fund their cars, and not many sponsors can foot that bill.
Yeah, no, not at all. And that's just to get the car on the track too. That's not including R&D or anything else. So, um, you got people to pay as well. Maybe not to the extent Danny Hamlin was making it up to be, but yeah. Oh, it looks like he blew up.
Oh yeah, that looks more than a tire issue. Yep, I just heard Rick Allen say the engine expired. Martin Truex Jr., bad years continuing, right? Good Lord.
At least it looks like he blew up. Maybe not.
I tell you, Joe Gibbs has had a real oil
they
line.
Were worried
maybe
about the rubber falling off the tires.
Similar
in practice, it was happening. It was happening a lot, and they were worried about it causing fire within the car. But
yes, that goes back to year one next gen where they kept catching on fire. I don't know. It looks like his day's done. Looks like they're pushing him. Yeah, Joe Gibbs has got a real engine issue. This is not this is a trend now. This is like their fourth or fifth engine to let go in the last 5 or 6 races. They're fast, clearly, but if they can't finish races, they are going to struggle in the playoffs. That's crazy. Oh, and by the way, where did Suarez fall to?
My guess is end of the lead lap. He was one of 2 cars on. Yeah, end of the lead lap. He's one of 2 cars on the on the prime tire. That being said, this field is not going to be able to make that option tire last the next 144 laps there are to go. So he still has himself in okay spot here.
If he can stay on the lead lap.
Yeah, depending on how long they stretch this out and how much time he loses, he's going to pass some of these cars again. We'll see how it plays out. That being said, though, if you're a mid-pack team and have a chance to do that and get your car out front, your sponsor on TV, which is very important for attracting new partners and winning stages, even if you don't get the end result, it's still a gamble worth taking, and it makes the racing better.
I agree. And we talked about that last week. Well, actually, maybe we didn't talk about that last week, but, at Indy, right? Hemrick made a strategy play there to stay out, or they took 2 tires or something. And they got themselves up to 3rd place. And because nobody could pass at Indy, he was able to hold that track position until he had to pit with 5 or 6 laps to go. He got a lot of exposure for Circle. And that is important, right? Like we talk about sponsors and trying to fund $18 million worth of race car. You got to get them that TV time. That's really where that's where they can make their money. That's where that advertising really comes into play. I love track activation. I've gone to a lot of races over the years, and, going by all the sponsors, they all have their little fan zone spot where you can go and get the free merch, and that's cool. That's great. But sponsors want to see their cars on television. And if you can get them some laps led or competing with Kyle Larson, that's a big deal for these teams. So we'll see how it plays out. I really thought Suarez would be able to hold his position, but obviously being the only guy on primes, he went backwards. So it might not actually pay out for him at the end. But people knew he was there. He won stage 2. That's a big deal.
Yeah, again, he was running 20 to 22nd earlier, and even now, being at the tail end of the lead lap, he is running 16th. So it's still a net positive, stage points, and then some. Back to Kaulig, though. So we believe Zane Smith is Kaulig bound, probably in a Cup car, which to me comes down to who gets the other car, AJ Allmendinger or Daniel Hemrick. A year ago, considering the direction Kaulig was heading, it was all about funding. If they think there's a charter deal coming at all prior to the next season, I think Daniel Hemrick is losing his Cup ride. And to Christopher's post here earlier, so Kaulig's going to have 4 open Xfinity seats. again, speculation, but this is based off of a lot of accurate information, in our opinion. Now, who they are, we really only have one guarantee, and even it's like a 99.9%. Um, I don't believe Kaulig has any open Xfinity rides. We believe Kaulig has filled not one, not two, not three, but four cars for next season in the Xfinity Series. And while Josh Williams does have a deal, to me it might come down to Josh Williams or Daniel Dye. Can Daniel Dye bring funding close to Josh Williams? And if he can, you're probably putting Daniel Dye in that car over Josh Williams, and Josh Williams might have to go elsewhere. I suppose there's a world where they both are there. I personally hope not, but we don't believe Kaulig has any open Xfinity rides, and that they are more than likely expanding to four full-time cars. Again, some of that speculation, but when you listen to what Breakhard said, when you listen to what Bob Pockras has said in the past, we know that one of the Xfinity rides, 99.9%, is going to be filled by Truck Series regular season champion Christian Eckes, which is interesting because Bob had speculated for the last couple of months that in order to get him into the organization, you might have to give him the cup ride. So if they were able to get Eckes without giving him the cup ride, I do wonder how much of that was Chevy going, look, there are no other available cup rides, and Kaulig might need a year of catching up, and let's run a year of Xfinity with them, and then you go up to cup. And if Zane Smith is only going to be a 1 year thing with Kaulig, to me, like, the writing's on the wall right there. Eckes is going to their Xfinity program while Zane Smith comes over for a year. I know people might say, well, Connor Zilisch could end up going up to the Cup Series eventually, but I don't think they're going to be in any rush to make that move. And it was worded in a Breakhard video, or at least heavily implied, that there simply wasn't any room at Kaulig for Connor to go there, and that all their seats were filled. And the fella at Breakhard had said, from what he's heard, the Kaulig Xfinity lineup is pretty stout. So I do think you're dealing with some sort of situation here where it's either Allmendinger in a cup ride, or maybe AJ stays in the Xfinity series. I just, Bob was kind of wrong on Eckes with the cup, it seems like, with Kaulig. Not that he said it was a shoe-in or anything, but he's also heavily pointed towards AJ. Um, how do you see this playing out, man? Because to me, if AJ's not in the Cup Series, he's obviously in the Xfinity Series. He has a deal signed through 2027 with an option for 2028, a ton of security. He was paid quite well for it to basically finish his career with Kaulig. And it to where is it here? Cindy had a question. I want to sort of put her in question in with this. As a team owner, how weighted is drivers' ability versus their marketability? Well, a lot of the times now, Cindy, is a driver has some sort of funding attached to them. Like Bubba Wallace ended up finally getting funding attached to him, and the second that happened, it was so long. Were they still RPM at that time?
They were RPM at the time. Yeah.
It was so long RPM, hello 2311, because of the amount of funding that Bubba was bringing in just by himself. A lot of drivers have sponsors linked to them. Some of the bigger teams have sponsors linked to them. Spire is an example. I'm getting some issues on my broadcast here. I don't know if you are.
Mine's pretty good at the moment, but
lots of lag on my end. But Spire, for example, brought in Gainbridge, right? That's a team sponsor. Kaulig has Celsius. That's not an AJ sponsor. It is even though they're primarily only with AJ. They started with some Justin Haley sponsorship and have increased their support to Allmendinger more than any other driver that they support in the sport. You have to bring some sort of A-level intangible to get a specifically in the Cup Series, right? To even get a sniff or Cup Series starts, you have to bring something that other guys don't bring. And the reason why AJ's still running a ton of Cup races this year, to a point the team has gone out of their way to run 3 cars at times, and will actually do so multiple other times this year at Watkins Glen, the Roval, and now Talladega with the Stride partnerships that they've signed on with. Is AJ is a better road course racer in terms of in the Cup Series. Everybody, like there's nobody who is proven to be better than him.
I could give you an argument for Tyler Reddick, but your point stands.
Well, Reddick's got great equipment though. Like if you're doing AJ Reddick heads up um, in a Kaulig car in a 2311 car, you might be foolish to not bet against Tyler Reddick. Interestingly enough, it was AJ Allmendinger who tutored Tyler Reddick when Tyler
trained
Reddick
him.
was still in
RCR
RCR.
equipment. Yep.
Yeah, so AJ is such a dynamic road course racer that he's able to get away with that and still be a hired gun, if you will, in a sport that doesn't have a lot of hired guns left. He's also an excellent super speedway racer, even though he hates it.
Yeah, and listen, and AJ does bring a tangibility of marketability. He obviously brings the ability to win at road courses. And listen, that's what attracts sponsors, right? If you are competitive, if you're capable of winning at the highest level, you're going to get some sponsors. And we've seen that with AJ several times this year. Now, the reason he wasn't in the 16 full time this year is because they lost Nutrien AG. He lost his sponsor. So again, the world does revolve around sponsors, but certain drivers can attract them, especially at their strengths. And Sean mentioned it. He's good at road courses. He's good at super speedways. It's not a surprise that he's able to bring in, even if they're only one-off sponsors, sponsors to cover those races because he has a chance to compete. But unless you're Kyle Larson, or Chase Elliott or Joey Logano, unless you're the very top of our sport, you have to bring funding. And unfortunately, skill doesn't matter as much as it once did. It's not saying these guys aren't good. Like Cole Custer is very good. Riley Herbst is really good. Even Chandler Smith, guys, for if you're with Kaulig fans last year, incredibly talented racing drivers, but they bring funding.
Big problem on Ryan Blaney's pit stop here. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, you couldn't get the nut off.
Yeah,
that'll kill your race with only 117 to go.
Yeah.
So Cindy, to your point, talent and skills 100% matter. That's how you get to the Cup Series. Because if you're not good enough, they will kick you out at the Cup Series. But you get these younger drivers are jumping ahead of other drivers, maybe from the Cars Tour or a late model series that might have a little bit more skill. These young kids are bringing the money. They're getting good opportunities. Listen, we talked about Connor Zilich and is it Connor Solwich or whatever Solwich's first name is? Both of these guys are down in the ARCA series, but they are in their equipment because they bring family money, and they're going to get opportunities at the Xfinity series level because they bring money. So, and I honestly don't think Solwich, I will eventually learn that kid's name, is all that good. But he has so much money, Joe Gibbs is putting him in a car. So talent matters to a point. Sorry, I just lost connection for a second, but but now to these more for a bit. But now to where the Kaulig lineup is, I really do think Allmendinger will be back in the 16 Cup car full time. Saul Willich, thank you. I will get that right.
Yeah, I have a feeling Zane Smith is going to be in the 31 next year.
I do agree. I think Zane Smith will be in the 31, and I do think AJ will be in the 16. That makes the most sense. But I also wouldn't be shocked if they announced him as the Xfinity Series driver next year. I really wouldn't.
The only worry I have with that is, and I know you and I don't necessarily see eye to. By the way, Suarez is back to P1.
Still on his old tires.
Yeah. But you know what? He's got a 6-second lead. So, um, in terms of how long it takes to catch him will be interesting because they got to pass traffic too, right? So, um, we'll see. I mean, it's just there's so much variety here. But interestingly enough, the top 20 cars all on prime tires right now. And we know our conversation's all over the place. This is what happens when you do this during a race. But we really appreciate everybody for coming out today, and we're trying to answer everybody's question as much as possible. You will have the option to donate to the channel on the next live stream. I don't think it's available yet. I don't think I've activated it yet. But all it means is you can send in a super chat, and your question will get highlighted, and it helps the channel out because there are costs to doing this. We operate different YouTube channels as well. Ryan and I and some other people do a Westeros channel. If you're interested in like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, there's also a Star Wars one, a horror movie one. This is just one of 5 different channels, and it costs to be able to do this. So whenever anyone's willing to donate, it definitely helps out. Back to the Kaulig Racing side of things, though. To me, it's more beneficial for Eckes if Allmendinger is not in Xfinity. Because if he is in Xfinity, he is going to get the most attention still. He's their guy. He's the guy that has built this team, essentially. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I do think it could be as simple as this, is AJ might go up, Hemrick might go down, Circle stays on board, and it's much cheaper to sponsor Xfinity races than Cup races, where they still do some of AJ's schedule, maybe not to the Hemrick support that they've done, but also find a way to do a good chunk of Hemrick's Xfinity schedule. I just think there's just a massive talent difference between Daniel Hemrick and AJ Allmendinger. And it's noticeable. Even Suarez is now pitting. For me, like, I think AJ's averaging like an 18th place finish this year. This is off the heels of obviously the wreck at Chicago and the wreck at Pocono, which really hurt his average finish, which was like 11th or 12th or something like that, which was crazy good. Where Hemrick's was like 26th, he's improved that up to like 23 point something now. So Hemrick has fought like a dog the last 5 or 6 weeks to improve his season. I just don't think it's enough to warrant him getting any more Cup Series time. There's no upside in him being there anymore.
The only thing he does is brings home equipment, right? He doesn't wreck. That's his one positive, right? Is he drives the car within the bounds of what it's capable of, which means he's mediocre every week. And I definitely wanted to, and I know we've had a lot of new followers recently. This time last year, I was shitting all over Ty Dillon. I dislike him as a driver, not as a person, but as a driver. I just felt like he has been bad in every opportunity he ever stepped foot in. And I was screaming from the top of my lungs that I did not want Ty Dillon driving a Kaulig car this year. And if we look at, all the races that Dillon has done to this point this year, he's outruns Hemrick every week. And he's now running 23rd right now. Where is Hemrick? 33rd. This is Ty Dillon has done a great job, much better than I expected him to in our cars. I want to give him the kudos that he deserves for that. But again, it just proves that Hemrick is not the right answer. Bringing cars home in one piece is great, but you need cars competing for the playoffs, not 25th in points. And if Hemrick gets an opportunity again next year at the Cup level, it's not the end of the world, but it would not be the step forward from an organizational standpoint that would really help them if they really are serious about making continual gains. It's not with Hemrick. And honestly, I think if Hemrick is not given a cup opportunity, I don't see him going back to the Xfinity Series for Kaulig. I just, it's hard to get demoted. I don't think he would do it willingly, unlike Allmendinger, who probably didn't enjoy doing it himself, but is a team player.
He might be an option at Rick Ware, man. I know it's a different manufacturer, but then you get the question of, I know there's some debate about this online, but whether it would be Circle going with him or Circle staying with Kaulig. I investigated this again yesterday, and sorry, they're still listed in the Kaulig Capital Company, and it's not like it's not as if all of the Kaulig sponsors are listed there either. Some of them are, like Hyperrice is, but like Celsius isn't listed there. There's other sponsors that they have that aren't listed there. There's a chance that they would go with Hemrick. And then it becomes can you replace that funding if that's the case? I don't know if he would, take a flyer on Rick Ware Racing. I don't know if Rick Ware Racing would take a flyer on him.
Well, they might if they lose Justin Haley. Listen, I know we are all over the place here, but I do think Justin Haley is going to go to Spire and take over the 7 car from Corey LaJoie. And that leaves Rick Ware Racing without a driver. So I could see, if Hemrick as an option there. I don't think it would be the best option, but they would have to replace Haley because, unless LaJoie does a seat swap and goes to Rick Ware, which is maybe not out of the question, but it seems like he would go if he's going to the trucks. Maybe Rick Ware is where Daniel Hemrick ends up, and we'll see Kaulig drivers 2 years in a row go that direction. But I really, my gut tells me AJ is going to be in the 16 Cup car with whatever funding they've been able to piece together. I really do think we're going to see Zane Smith in the 31 Cup car. And to what you're saying earlier, Sean, I do think this 1-year deal with Suarez is the linchpin to this whole operation, because that would allow Zane Smith to come to Kaulig for 1 year under an agreement with Trackhouse, allow him to get a little bit more practice, a little bit more seasoning, and then going into 2026, they can reevaluate what they want to do with Zane Smith. If he improves, maybe he's ready to take that Trackhouse seat and Suarez is let go. But if Christian Eckes comes to Kaulig as the Xfinity driver, they might say, hey man, 1 year in the Xfinity Series to get seasoning. Zane Smith is moving on. We got an open seat in the 31 in 2026. Let's make this ascension happen. That really could be the story they sold to Eckes to get him on board.
Well, here's the question. Here's something we haven't talked about. We'll bring it up now since there's still 93 laps to go. You had the theory, and I noticed you reached out very hard today. It got put out there anyways that Sam Mayer's not going to go Cup racing in 2024. And that he may not be going to Toyota either, which would seem to rule out JGR. It should be noted that when Sam Mayer's name kept coming up at the end of last season as a possible Cup Series ride this year, he had way more support than what he has had this year. The brake accelerator or whatever it was, the black and blue scheme we were so used to seeing the last few years with him. Was a Sam Mayer sponsor. They're basically out. To my knowledge, they haven't done a race with them this year. That was the color of the hauler. That was on their car 90% of the time. It is not anymore, and he will not be returning to Junior Motorsports. So to me,
which by the way blows my world. I just want to say that seemed like a good partnership. I don't know what's happened that's caused that to sour.
Funding, like they've had to make up for. I want to say, and I don't want to look into it right this second, but like we're talking upwards of 20 races lost of funding. So while he still brings some of his own, what that translates to in a cup ride, I have no idea.
Yeah,
not a lot. So I do wonder, we've speculated, is there a chance that Kaulig is not only bringing in Christian Eckes in the Xfinity Series next year, but Sam Mayer as well? And if it's Eckes and Sam Mayer, two young guys with a ton of upside, I think Eckes has a little more upside than Mayer does personally, but Mayer's a pretty good road racer, which fits in with what Kaulig's trying to do. Um, you might be saying, hey, we're getting AJ back up in the Cup Series for a year. You know, AJ's already said he'll go wherever. He has a type of contract that's going to allow him to. Ty Dillon on the options is about to blow past his brother and Joey Logano. My God.
Superman. What a Superman right there. What a move.
Holy crap. Wow. Look
Yeah.
how much faster. Wow.
Yeah. If he keeps that up, he's going to get himself one lap down, which is pretty big deal. Listen, Christian Eckes, when we talked about Christian actually, we didn't talk about Christian Eckes last year. He won a race. I think he may have even won 2 races last year. And he did okay in the truck playoffs. I think he made it to the round of 6 or 8 or however the hell the truck series does it. I was pretty impressed because he took over the seat of Daniel Kraus. And I don't want to talk too much about Daniel Kraus because he is not a driver that's on any of our radars outside of being maybe a sim driver. But he took a car or a truck that Kraus did not do very well in and won some races. And that kind of caught my interest. And now this year he's been, I can't say the best driver in trucks because Corey Haim has won basically every race. But he's been really, really good. And he has definitely put his name on the radar, not just for an Xfinity ride, but for a Cup ride, right? And this is why we're talking about him. You know, while we're kind of surprised that he is actually potentially going to Kaulig in an Xfinity car next year and not straight to Cup, because he's kind of proven that he's the real deal. But when we compare, I think it's tough to say Christian Eckes is better than Sam Mayer because Sam Mayer has 5 wins in the Xfinity Series.
I'm not saying currently. You know, I'm saying when you're looking at like a prospect in a sport, to me, the ceiling is higher with Eckes than Mayer.
I could be I find that hard. You could be right. I just think both of them are really talented. Sam Mayer has proven himself on road courses. He's an elite road racer. He's done pretty well on the ovals. He won at Texas this year. He's got some maturing to do. He's still quite childish at times, but I definitely feel like Mayer has really taken a big step this year and is close to going Cup racing. And if you really want I really do think there's a strong chance that Sam Mayer comes to Kaulig as an Xfinity driver, and next year's Kaulig lineup is going to be a combination of Christian Eckes, Sam Mayer, Josh Williams, and the 4th car, which is probably an all-star car, if I had to guess. And to Jay, let me read through the chat here, who is asking about SVG.
See, I disagree with that. I think it's 4 full-time cars, man.
Well, who's your 4th driver then?
Daniel Dye. Like, he brings funding too, which is important, and he's shown some upside enough, in my opinion, to earn a ride. He just made the Xfinity playoffs. I'm not sold on Daniel Hemrick not willing to go back down to Xfinity, because I think he probably believes in himself enough to, well, I can go make the playoffs down there and contend for some wins still, while potentially still getting some spot starts in the 13th. I think all those Kaulig guys, if AJ is the Cup guy full-time with Zane Smith, I think that entire Kaulig Xfinity lineup, if you bring any level of funding, is going to have an option to run that 13 car at certain racetracks, specifically on super speedways. For a guy like Sam Mayer, it might be on road courses. I think they're going to really use those guys to do it. I think it's 4 full-time drivers, and what you'll see is a 5th car part-time. And you mentioned someone's message earlier. Will SVG drive a 5th car part-time? My simple answer is possibly, but he wouldn't be the priority for that 5th car. I think we know who the priority for that fifth car would be. His name is AJ Allmendinger. So there's if Mexico City is Cup Series and Xfinity, that makes, I believe, seven or eight Xfinity road courses. But I believe right now two of them would be in the playoffs. So I don't know.
Well, we have to see the schedule. It's going to be funky. This year, Watkins Glen's in the playoffs, but next year I don't think it will be. So,
yeah, I know there was a teaser that was put out that sounds like they might, even though they're going to expand the number of road courses, we might get less of them in the playoffs, which does not make a lick of sense to me. But especially if they're expanding by two, then it really doesn't make any sense. But we'll see what happens here. I don't think SVG will be a priority in that fifth car. I'm not saying he'll get no starts, but I believe that Kaulig Racing will start AJ Allmendinger on road courses over SVG, despite the difference in talent. AJ's their guy. Without AJ, that organization has very few wins. Obviously, SVG has won 3 times this year. I'm not saying SVG, by the way, won't get Xfinity starts, but Trackhouse has a relationship with another team, and their names are now Junior Motorsports, but also RCR. So there could be other options for SVG to run an Xfinity car. I seen some play in the comments, on Twitter the other day, dude. If it is 4 full-time cars, what are the numbers? 10, 11, 16? What's the fourth? Does it just stay 97?
that's a good point. It could, unless the driver that they're bringing in has a number in mind. Like obviously the 97 was a number that meant something to SVG. Listen, again, let's just be hypothetical and say Sam Mayer is hired. Maybe he brings the one over with him, right? Because one doesn't really have any real meaning to Junior Motorsports because they run the 7, the 8, the 9. Right.
I think back to Elliott Sadler days, though. I mean, Elliott Sadler was running it. I think who was after that? Michael.
Well, wasn't he RCR though? I thought he was number 1 for RCR.
Was it RCR? I thought he wrapped up with Junior Motorsports.
Well, he drove for every one of them there at the end of his career. So
the 14's an option too, by the way. Like I know some other rinky-dink car that doesn't matter at all. No offense to them, ran the 14, but colleagues run the 14 before. Wouldn't be shocked to see it be the 14 as well. Again, this isn't as important as stuff, but yeah, I think it's 4 full-time cars. I do not think it's 3 full-time cars with an all-star car. I think it's 4 full-time drivers. Otherwise, I think Connor Zilish would have been Kaulig bound as well. The other thing that I think we need to talk about that we haven't talked about yet, 69 laps to go, by the way, Danny Hamlin leading Austin Dillon, of all people, who's had a great very race. Strong weekend. How much is a playoff
it's up in arms.
Dillon can snag a win here.
Light it on fire, man. It'd be insane if Dillon can get a win here. And this is what Dillon does, right? No. Like, this is an Austin Dillon race in a nutshell. The dude disappears for a year and a half.
Austin Dillon to the lead.
And then just all of a sudden shows up and randomly wins a race. Like, obviously, there's a lot of racing left to go here, but he could win this thing. And, yeah, I know we didn't talk about C. Bell getting his penalty that much, but, that opened the floodgates, right? This really does, you could probably give 3 or 4 names now to win this race, but this opens the door for Hamlin. This definitely gives Dillon a real chance. We'll kind of see how everything works out for Suarez. I don't know where he's at the moment, but 8th, running 8th, 7th. That could open the door for him.
How long
Joey Logano. So,
how long is the fuel run at Richmond? Can they make it 70 laps?
They can, but they can't go 70 laps on tires. They're pitting again. Tires are about 35 laps, and they got to change.
No, I'm not talking the prime. The options. I'm talking the primes. It seems like
35 laps, 40 laps. That's it. They'll pit again. The fall off is, even on the prime tire, is almost 2-3 seconds. So if somebody comes in with 30 laps to go and puts on a fresh set of rubber, he's driving to the front and winning the race.
Carson Hocevar now leading, by the way. Christopher Bell chasing him down. Looks like Hocevar's going to... Oh!
Ooh, C. Bell got really tight there.
Oh!
Oh, goodness. It's tight sneakers.
Let me tell you, I have crashed in iRacing entering pit road at Richmond. So I feel for these guys for sure. Yeah, back to Kaulig Racing here. I do believe it's 4 full-time cars. I don't know if Sam Mayer is one of them or not. Because I do think there are other guys with funding. Brandon Jones was not listed as one of those guys locked to return to Junior Motorsports. Still a young enough guy with some upside who's coming off of 2 down years in a row, who brings a shit ton of funding. Harrison Burton, young guy who hasn't worked out at the Cup Series, but was working up pretty well for JGR and Xfinity, brings a lot of funding, especially when that converts to an Xfinity ride. I think both of those guys are interest to Kaulig Racing. If it's not a Sam Mayer, obviously I would rather Sam Mayer, because I do like the outlook of, hey, this year is AJ and Zane Smith, but come run a year of Xfinity, and our long-term thing here is Sam Mayer and Christian Eckes on long-term deals that include a spike in their contract up to a Cup Series driver.
That is my dream scenario. Right there. That's my dream scenario.
I don't even know if it's a dream, man. I think it's pretty realistic at this point in time.
Right. Well, listen, it's a realistic scenario, which, and listen, we were talking a week and a half ago. I think we both would have laughed ourselves out of the room even talking about the option of Sam Mayer and Christian Eckes in the trucks or in the Xfinity series. But just based off of how the dominoes have fallen, and while it's not official, it's pretty official that Eckes is coming to Kaulig, which is a huge get. Like, I know you said we need a prospect. We've got one. That's somebody that we can build around.
And Daniel, not to say Daniel Dye isn't a prospect. He is. He's not just someone. He's not someone I consider a blue chip prospect. Not to say he can't develop further either. But I'll tell you one thing: if Kaulig enters next year with Eckes, Mayer, and Dye all in the fold, all of a sudden the outlook of the organization has gone from no prospects to 3 prospects, 2 of them blue chippers. And in terms of their ability to stay in Chevrolet equipment, it probably puts some pressure on the manufacturer to go, hey, we need to give these guys a little bit more support if we don't want to lose this talent to other manufacturers.
Yeah. And that's something that, they haven't really talk Chevy here. It's something that Chevy hasn't had to worry a whole hell of a lot about recently, because they locked up Hendrick Motorsports a few years ago, and Trackhouse has done a very good job of finding their own talent. But there is definitely, an outlook picture where you can say Chevy doesn't have a lot of good drivers in the pipeline right now. Christian Eckes and Sam Mayer are probably the top 2 currently available. And when you compare that to what TRD continually pumps out from prospects, and even what we're seeing a little bit with Ford. Obviously, I think Cole Custer's going back Cup racing next year, but they've done an okay job of kind of growing their pipeline. They got Lane Riggs down in trucks, and Front Row has done a good job of bringing in young talent. Ford's done a good job of cultivating talent. Chevy is falling behind. So I definitely think there's some, this is the opportunity for Kaulig to grab a couple young guys and run with it. So I don't know for sure if Sam Mayer comes to Kaulig, but just kind of looking again, like, what seats are open.
If Chevy wants them to stay as a Chevy team, they're one, essentially. Yep.
And again, maybe funding is the big reason why he would be out at Junior Motorsports, because Junior is pretty hell-bent on, if you don't have money, you're not in our cars. But from a talent perspective, he's a guy that's, as we said, has won quite a few races. So, So yeah, it would be intriguing to see what the option is for Sam Mayer if it's not Junior Motorsports and it's not Joe Gibbs Racing. Kaulig makes a lot of sense. They're the next best, and it's that RCR has made no waves about expanding their operation. I think they're pretty happy with Austin Hill and Jesse Love. So, really, where else does that leave but Kaulig? So, again, we're just kind of talking about what makes sense and looking at what seats have been filled, to why we're having this conversation. But I really do think there's a strong chance we're talking about a Christian Eckes, Sam Mayer, Josh Williams, Daniel Dye lineup next year. And maybe Daniel Dye isn't full-time. I really could see Daniel, and I know I'm kind of reversing course on this a bit, but I could see Daniel Dye running another year in the trucks. He also drives for this McKinley Hillman Racing team. Yeah, it's the same team that Eckes drives for. So, if Eckes comes to Kaulig and we already have Daniel Dye on a part-time schedule, I think we might be building a bit of a pipeline between these two teams from a truck to Xfinity series situation. And if Daniel Dye runs for a championship next year in the trucks, which could realistically happen, and still get a similar schedule, 10 races or more, and a fourth Kaulig car, that opens up that car for AJ and SVG to run part-time, but also gives Daniel Dye another year to kind of make that leap, especially as we've already seen, he made the playoffs in trucks this year. Maybe he runs for the championship next year. I could see that as a real possibility.
Nathan says, isn't there a rumor that I think he means Ty Dillon is being paid by his granddad to basically run the Kaulig car when he's in there? Well, maybe not for some of the sponsors he's brought in, but when you see Chevy on the car like it is today, there's no doubt.
Yep, I agree. This is a self-funded race, whether that's coming directly from Chevy accessories or RCR. One of those two are paying for Ty Dillon to be in the race tonight.
Plus, you weren't getting AJ to run at Richmond if he wasn't running a full-time schedule. He's very well aware of how bad Kaulig is here. And AJ's not a fan of running around 25th to 30th. I think you can sell him, competing for top 15s. Competing for top 25s is a little bit of a harder sell at this point in his career, especially if he has the option to not run it. He looks like he's on vacation anyways with his family. And
I was going to say, they basically got a month off. I'm sure he's loving this month off. Right. Sure. And that's the other thing, that while I don't think it would be a decision maker for him, the fact that the Xfinity series has allowed him to take a month off, spend time with Arrow and his wife, and recharge his batteries for this late season push, I really do expect him to come out firing on all cylinders here as we get towards the playoffs. And I know he hasn't won yet, but he's been much closer recently. And I do think this nice long stretch of time off is going to really help him and the team really come out swinging here the second half of the season.
I got to tell you, I think Austin Dillon is better than Danny Hamlin right now.
He absolutely is. He absolutely is. Now, can he make the pass? That's the question.
That is the question. One lap
it's hard to
tires,
pass.
I don't think that's enough, but man, is there a bunch of people shitting bricks right now.
Including one Martin Truex Jr. Because if Austin wins this race, Martin Truex falls below the cut line. So does Ross Chastain. Yeah, Ross is right on that. He's 1 or 2 points to the good. So
Daniel Suarez P5, by the way, with an option tire left.
Yep, they all have options. They all have one round of options left. So this actually is going to work out for Suarez. Now, it's clear he's had a pretty good car tonight, but he wouldn't have shown nearly this much pace if he was stuck down in 20th.
Nathan says Ryan could Jr. be your investor if Mayer goes to Kaulig. As far as I know, Kaulig, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to have much interest in bringing in another investor to have someone have more say in the organization. They've probably had opportunities to do that and they have not taken it. I know there was a silly rumor out there that Kaulig might buy controlling interest in RCR. That in terms of getting access to the equipment and maybe NASCAR grandfathering in them for a 4-car charter as well. I don't see where the benefit is outside of that. It wouldn't shock me though because I don't think people thought Chip Ganassi was going to sell. So
Yeah.
don't
Everybody has a
rule it out.
price.
I'll tell you what. The second Richard Childers is not majority owner, Austin Dillon, who's competing for a win here tonight, is on the hot seat.
Well, if they sell, which is a huge if, I really don't see them doing it.
Nor do I. I think it's bullshit. But
Austin is SOL. What I foresee happening is Austin running another couple years, 2 or 3 years, whatever it is for him, maybe 5 if he's feeling frisky. But then getting out of the car and running RCR, he's going to take over for Richard Childress, I do believe, from a competition standpoint. So when that day comes, which I do think is sooner than later at this point, that's where this goes. I just don't, again, as you said, nobody saw Chip Ganassi getting out of NASCAR. And if somebody comes in with a big wad of cash, then, anything is possible. But I would be really shocked if RCR. Now, I will say this about Kaulig, and from an investor standpoint, maybe this new agreement that they've, the sponsorship that they just signed this week, maybe that leads to some potential.
I'm sure people just love that.
I'm sure they would, but listen, NASCAR is, from a general standpoint, pretty conservative.
Got a battle for the lead here, man. Maybe a pass attempt coming up. Danny Hamlin gambled on trying to make a pass and failed badly, and Austin Dillon's all over him now. 36 to go.
It's can he pass him? That's the question. Hamlin knows how to make a car really wide.
Hamlin is using the brake way more than Austin Dillon is, it looks like.
Well, he's definitely he's rolling it in harder. Who's that? That's now Ty Gibbs with fresh tires, breaking up the battle. I hate that.
It doesn't seem to be breaking up the battle. Wow.
Well, maybe he can cut. Yeah, maybe he can cut.
Holy crap! That's 3 cars this weekend. Oh my god.
Yeah, if the 3-car was smart, he would follow the 54, unless the 54 is being a pick, which he could be.
There we go.
Oh, he's to his outside quarter. Can he hold it? Nope. That was really good teamwork, by the way, between the 54 and the 11. Can he hold it? He's going to bump him. Oh, did he bump him? That's really what's going to do it. If the 3 is willing to bump the 11 out of the way for a win.
I got to watch my tongue. I think I'm about 10, 15 seconds ahead of you. Because when I was referring to the attempted pass to the inside, and you were still talking about the outside move. Kyle Busch is 22nd, 2 laps down. He is out of contention.
And nothing really bad's happened either, right? It just hasn't had a very good car.
Really bad pit stop. Yeah, and that killed his day. Daniel Suarez coming back. I think he's on the. Oh, he's on. Boy, he just bumped him. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah,
my bad.
Yeah, Daniel Suarez on the option might have just won this race, y'all. And unless Hamlin and Dillon stay out for the next 30 laps, Suarez is going to win this race if they all pit. Oh, Austin. Oh, he's push him up. This is where it gets hard to complete the pass, though, right? Especially at Richmond. You need all of the track to roll it up. He did. He cleared him.
Yeah, he did. Wow. That is wild, man.
All right. Well, now the question becomes, can Suarez track him down over the next 28 laps?
I was going to say, is he just going to try to stay out?
I would. At this point, they've made their bed. They can't pit, because if they pit right now, both Suarez and Blaney are gone.
Tell you what, though, I'd be worried about Suarez causing a caution. He full-on bumped Hamlin, which opened the door for Dillon to pass him.
Well, and if caution comes out, those two drivers that took their softs are screwed.
And Kyle Busch is about to pass Danny Hamlin right now, and I wonder if he's going to play some pick and roll here and slow him up.
Nathan, it's a good question on who's on reds and yellows. I know they've got the little the ticker that has the markings if it's an option tire or a prime tire, but it's, especially now that we're at side-by-side commercial, it's hard to tell. And they need something on this leaderboard. That would be their next, I would say. I'm sure they'll do that for next year, where they can have a little tire color or something next to this leaderboard to see where everybody's running.
I mean, however this turns out, man, I think for a sport that just keeps failing with this car in terms of making it better, boy, has
this was a good
wild success.
Yeah, and now we've got another strategy with the 99 car on the soft tire, trying to go literally lap the field. That's his goal right now.
He's blowing past guys, man.
Yeah, this is this. They need to go side by side here with the 99 and the 3, and they need some way to give us a distance gap, because that's the race for the win right now.
Where are we here?
Nathan, they're running the same car.
16 seconds, man.
Yeah, we got side by side. I can watch the 3 car, but don't see any time gaps really at the moment.
We have it on our stream. It's 16 seconds.
Oh, he's up to 8th?
Yeah. Austin.
What's the lap time? 24 flat? 24.1 to 24.7? Or 24.8?
24, yeah.
So he's running about 0.6 faster?
Austin needs to put guys in front of him, or else guess what? Suarez is going to be the guy that looks like
he's going to be there. And now the question is, does the tire fall off, right? Does the soft tire fall off, or can he continue to hold this gap?
I think he put it on with like 36 or 37 to go. So we'll see. He's clearly pushing much harder than he was earlier, but I mean, there we go. There's a better idea on the gap. He's got a ways to go still.
15.3 with 20 to go.
Let's hope we don't get one of those dreaded BS NASCAR cautions. Water bottle caution.
No, this is NASCAR will not throw a caution here unless they have to. This is what they wanted. They got what they wanted right here.
By the way, thanks to the chat for coming out tonight. You guys have been very active. Numbers have been really good. Really appreciate it. I know there's no AJ or SVG, and we will talk some Kaulig to end the stream. But with 18 to go right now, our focus is on the race.
Yeah. Oh, Suarez is absolutely on the reds. He is on the option. And he is running
Ryan Blaney.
9/10 a second faster, 8/10 a second faster.
Down, he's cut the lead down to 13 seconds. Ryan Blaney's about 19 seconds back.
Well, and I'm sorry, I can actually listen to the race broadcast ever so slightly in my ear, and they're saying, "Will the prime or will the red tire be fast for 40?" But even if it's not as fast for 40, you have to think these guys, these leaders, are on their primes, and they're running 70 or so laps. So does their tires are going to be pretty shot too.
Yeah, I was worried about this happening for them not wanting to give up the track position under green, and them essentially wasting
Reds,
a set of options. And
yep.
a lot of guys are going to end up wasting a set of options. And
Unless the caution comes out.
that's true. The caution could come out, and then good luck to whoever's on yellows. But um, you know, a lot of guys just making the mistake by not pitting, regardless if Suarez catches him or not. Down to 11 seconds now, by the way, 15 to go. It's going to be close. Suarez was a 22nd place car.
Yep. And they ran this race beautiful. By the way, shout out to Squid. Was it Jason Skwerdisky? Sorry, my name butchering tonight's awful.
Matt Swiderski.
Matt Skwerdisky, former Kaulig crew chief, by the way. Going over to Trackhouse in the swap with Travis Mack. And I'm telling you what, even if he doesn't win this race, Sean, he's going to finish top 5 guaranteed. Hell, he might even finish second or third in this race, worst case. It's a hell of a call for the crew chief on the box. So great strategy tonight by Matt Skwerdisky. I don't think he's going to catch him. I think the goodie is starting to wear off a little bit on these tires. He's still
9 seconds and change with 12 to go.
Yeah. It's going to be close. I don't think he's going to catch him.
Not to rule out Danny Hamlin here, but he has knocked about 4/10 off Suarez the last few laps. Sorry, Dylan. Off Dylan.
Oh, now Suarez has some clean raceway here. Yeah, I want to know where this came from for Austin Dillon. This is just so out of nowhere. They have not been very good all year long.
And if you're a colleague right now, you're probably going, "What the fuck?" Like,
well, where's Ty Dillon right now? Is he about 27th?
He's 27th, Hemrick's 30th.
And where's Kyle? 20th?
Yeah, Kyle Busch was good. Yeah, it was a pit stop. I'm not sure he was where Austin was, but he had a top 10 type car.
He's not going to catch him. He's not going to catch him. He's going to run out of time. By the way, again, just massive credit to Austin Dillon, because not only did he catch and pass Denny Hamlin clean, he's driven away from Denny Hamlin. He is almost 3 seconds clear of Hamlin, which is super impressive.
He's opened back up to 3 seconds. He had it almost 3 seconds before Hamlin got it down. Now he's opened it back up. Suarez down to within 6 seconds, 7 laps to go. Probably not enough time.
No. I think the goodie on his tire has worn off just a little bit. Yeah.
I think I know traditional NASCAR fans probably hate it, but boy, does it change things when you add the option tire into these short tracks.
Yep. It's going to make Martinsville really interesting. It's going to make Bristol really interesting. Yeah, this strategy is not going to give Suarez the win, but he could 100% get to 5th, which would be an incredibly good day for him.
20th place car throughout stage 1.
Yep. Winner of stage 2, top 5 potentially at the end of the race. Played these tires perfectly.
And Trackhouse desperately wanted Suarez to get the Dillon because this is bad news for Ross Chastain, who's been going south.
Yep. And Ross is having a solid day running 7th, but he's going to fall below the cut line.
Well, I mean, if SVG is good at managing tires, it is only going to help him in his Cup Series career.
Yeah, it looks like he's just settled in.
Austin Dillon's going to play spoiler, barring a very bad caution here. Oh my God, no! Sorry, Ryan. Fuck! You have got to be shitting me. I tried.
Well, you're clearly ahead of me. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, my bad, dude.
Oh, shit. Come on down to pit road. Bolt on some reds. Let's go.
This has the potential to be multiple overtime restarts here with people staying out on yellows and some going on reds.
Well, Suarez is staying out on his reds. What the hell with 2 laps to go? Freaking Recky Stenhouse, y'all.
My goodness.
Right in front of the leaders, too. I mean, wouldn't that have... I mean, I'm glad he wasn't involved, but could you imagine if that just took out Austin right there?
Oh, no. Wait, is JTG with RCR anymore or no?
I honestly don't know. I don't think so.
Wow. Unbelievable.
How many laps have they gone green? 140 or something like that?
Absolutely bananas. The question is how many people stay out because of track position and how many people come in for reds. If
you got a set of reds, you got to come put them on. You have to.
I mean, 2 laps at Richmond's 40 seconds.
I know, but the speed gap is 3 seconds a lap. New tires to old tires.
Though, if someone, how many cars we got on the lead lap here?
Not many. I don't think many.
15. So if you're, Hocevar, McDowell, Barry, Elliott, Byron, you're probably staying out.
I mean, 2 tires, maybe. I would try 2 tires. That would be my strategy. You cannot not pit here. Just don't speed right now. Don't speed. Don't have a loose wheel. You need a clean pit stop. Good stop, 9.6, faster than Logano. That's impressive.
Suarez pit.
I'm surprised by that. I figured of all the drivers to stay out, Suarez would have been the one. And Logano beat Hamlin out of the pits.
Wow.
Good job to the pit crew.
Trying to see if anybody stayed out. No, it doesn't appear that anybody stayed out.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough the tire fall off. I'm surprised nobody went with 2 tires. That would have been my compromise on this. Because
I don't think you're allowed to. I'm pretty sure they said, because remember, if you go with 2 tires, you would have been staying. Most of them were on primes still, so you would have been going with 2 new primes. I don't think you're allowed to mix and match. They said.
It's interesting. I didn't catch that, but that would make sense. Yeah, it's true. Long runs, pump them up.
Big thanks to our audience tonight. First time us doing this. Again, we intend to do it a few more times before the end of the season. If you haven't yet, please like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all to keep up to date with all of our content. We'll have a couple of more videos out this week. And again, on our next live stream, Super Chats will be available, so something to consider. Boy, this is going to be wild, man. Who you got?
I think Dylan gets it done. He's been the best car here the last half of the race. He's got the fresh reds, got the inside line. I know Hamlin's behind him, and Logano's a master at restarts. Things can go sideways, but I just feel like this is Hamlin's or Dylan's race here.
Cindy says, love this guy. It's not listening to TV commentary. Much better listening to you guys. Oh, well, thank you.
We appreciate that.
Let's appreciate it. The growth of the channel over the last few months has been wild, and we've tried to make it a priority to get content out each and every week. And we'll continue to do so. So we really appreciate everything you guys have done to help us make that happen. I want Dylan to win because of the playoff chaos it creates. But boy, someone's getting wrecked here somewhere. I don't think we're getting one overtime. And if we are getting one overtime, it's probably ending under yellow.
Oh, Logano took the outside, which means Hamlin is taking... Oh, wait, not... Oh, they teased me. I thought they were choosing. Yeah, so let's see. Let's take a look at this. With Dylan leading the race, Buescher and Chastain are now out. Wallace is only 3 to the good. Gibbs is 18 to the good. Truex is 79 to the good. This win completely changes the ball game for playoffs.
If I'm Austin Dillon, I'm not feeling great about Danny Hamlin being behind.
Oh, I'm surprised he took the low line.
I think Danny will absolutely wreck him if he has a chance.
I don't think so. I don't think Danny will wreck him, but he's definitely not going to push. He's not going to be nice. He's going to make a move. He's going to go try to cut underneath him or do something to get around him. But also Suarez, Blaney, and several others on these regular tires, man, they are sitting.
Yeah, this hurts Suarez big time, and there's where a wreck could happen. Is you got Suarez and Blaney, even though they're fresh yellows.
Wallace up here in 5th. Reddick, guys we haven't really talked about much, but I'm surprised the Hendrick cars have not been very close to the front at all tonight. We'll see how this plays out. Good start for Logano. I had to take the outside. Dumbass. Oh, shit! Oh, he made a bunch of enemies right there. But he won the race.
Did he, though? When did the yellow get thrown? It's going to be when the yellow came. Oh, my God.
I knew something was happening because I could see it on your face. That is not the best way to do it, but he got it done.
Wow.
Logano and Hamlin are going to be pissed.
Is this going to be the best second place burnout we've ever seen? They have that stupid timing rule, right? So, like, did they throw the yellow after, like, as soon as Logano spun? And by spun, I mean got spun.
Do you think this might be we might have some fights in victory lane here? It's only his fifth win. I thought he had a few more than that. Oh, that 22 is, I mean, as he should be, hotter than a firecracker. Yeah, I agree, Nathan. The 11 and the 22 are going to have some words to say to Mr. Dillon here. But they don't care. You know what? They don't care, and that's amazing. I love this. Win at all costs. That's what NASCAR has created in this world of win and you're in. Do what you have to do to get a win. You know, if we go back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when AJ had a chance to win at Martinsville and didn't take Newman out when he could have, I wish he would have.
I don't know if I like that.
I don't like it one bit.
Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Oh, look at 45. You know, I appreciate 45 giving them a bumper there.
No, I'm talking about Austin being with his baby right now. That's
a safety precaution.
Yeah, that does feel like a safety net. Get your kids out of there, man.
That's all right. He still has to go to victory lane.
I never want to see kids put in harm's way, and that felt like a massive safety net move. Usually kids are a victory lane thing, not brought out onto the track.
Woo!
Wow, dude. Didn't expect this on our first ever live stream watch party with great audience numbers and participation, and just wow.
And Logano said everything you just did, Sean. It was chicken shit, thanking God, bringing his baby out on the victory lane.
Hey, I'm a father. No way in hell would I be like, you'd have to listen to the radio if he said have it for that to happen, or if RC got it to happen, or the crew chief got it to happen. There'd be radio if it was Austin's suggestion for it to happen, but should not have happened. You're putting your kids in harm's way there, and kudos to Joey and Danny, who I don't know if Joey's a father or not.
Joey has 2 or 3 kids.
Does he? Okay, so he knows better. Danny doesn't.
Danny's got 2 daughters.
Does he? Oh, just not married yet? Because I remember them. Tyler
Yeah,
Reddick
they're
was taking
the
shots at him
off
for
and
not
on
being married.
relationship with the mother, but yeah, they two daughters.
Okay, well, kudos to them because I'm sure they want to bust him in the mouth right now for not putting kids in harm's way. Wow.
Man, I wish the 11 would have. I know the 11 had no control, but you know he wanted to. You know he wanted to come back across that track and take the 3 out. The thing is, like,
The 3 got screwed with the caution that I wouldn't say it shouldn't have happened, but like completely preventable racing incident that fuckhouse there, who I really don't like. Uh, oh, here's Danny. Very, very good comments by Danny. I got to give him a lot of credit for his take on that.
oh, this is what I love about Hamlin, right? As somebody that owns a team that's been driving for years, like, he gets it. And I love listening to his weekly show, Actions Detrimental, because he really does give great insights into the underbelly of NASCAR and how it works and why decisions are made and things do the way they do. I wish he would be more pissed. He should be more pissed, but he fully understands the mechanism of why the 3 did it. And you're right. There's no penalty for it. Like, I know we've talked about, in years past, if SVG tried to pull anything like that in supercars, not only would he have gotten DQ'd in the race, he probably would have been banned from the next one for pulling what Austin just did. It's just a different world, NASCAR, at times. But he's going to pay the piper for this, right? This short-term gain of getting his team in the playoffs will pay the ultimate price come the playoffs when nobody treats him with any sort of respect.
Totally agree with that, but you know who doesn't care about that
Austin
is
Dillon.
the partners that are going to get a ton more attention now with him being a playoff car rather than him being a car that's like 29th in points.
No, from Austin Dillon's standpoint, the net positives outweigh the net negatives, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care what anybody else has to say or think. But I will say, from a purist racing standpoint, he should have taken the outside line on this restart. Like, he clearly showed that he was not used to running up front, because the high line would have gotten the lead and won this thing cleanly if he had taken the high line. And you know what? Daniel Suarez P10, seriously, on the prime tire, good for him. That's impressive.
Would have been P5 before that last caution too. So like
Yeah.
he to me they just brilliant this race. They were brilliant.
Yep.
Sorry, one moment here. Oh, is Joey walking to victory lane?
He should. I would have some words. The problem is he's got freaking NASCAR security, NASCAR officials. They're not going to let him anywhere near him.
One of the most wild finishes I've ever seen to a NASCAR race in my life.
Yeah, that's a hell of a race. That's a hell of an ending. We picked a good one to do this. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so to recap before we get out of here for this evening, Kaulig Racing, it appears that Christian Eckes is Kaulig bound with the Xfinity team. To me, it sounds like there's 4 full-time cars next year. We'll see how that plays out. Right now, our line of thinking is Zane Smith and AJ Allmendinger in Cup, with Christian Eckes and whomever else in Xfinity. I know Josh had a deal for next year, but there's other guys with funding. He has not performed this year, as Ryan's pointed out, and as I was worried about from the very beginning. And then there's also that old, terrible thing that happens in this sport where a sponsor comes in with a guy, and that guy ends up losing that sponsor to the team, and that guy loses his ride. It's happened countless times. It's a shrewd business, and big changes ahead for Kaulig. Hopefully, some clarification on that this week. My guess is it could still be a couple of weeks, and that's another thing we didn't talk about yet. If they are expanding to 4 full-time cars, man, Bruce is gone. So you can't just be hiring drivers. You need more support from Chevy in the Xfinity Series and in the Cup Series, and you need to reinforce that infrastructure a bit with crew chiefs. And Chris Rice said this week that they're looking to bring in like a director of competition to take some of the weight off his shoulders. And we talked about off air how Rodney Childers would have been great for that. Obviously, that didn't happen. To me, you can't just promote someone to that role. You got to go out and get someone who's going to make your team better for that role.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question mark going into next year. I feel like, much more positive vibes this year with Kaulig in terms of where their direction is for 2025. And obviously with Stewart-Haas Racing letting go of 3 of their cars, that there's, a lot of talented individuals looking for work. I think this is a good opportunity for Kaulig to jump on those. So I'm hoping that that's what they do, that they go out, get some good, strong leadership, good, strong engineers, and things kind of go in the positive direction with that front. And, a competition director would be good. I think Chris Rice needs a little bit of help. That would be valuable as long as it's the right person. Like, as you said, you can't just promote, somebody that's underachieving in a crew chief role or engineering role to be competition director. That doesn't do much for you. So they definitely have to make sure they make the right hires. That goes for drivers and crew. But I definitely think they're going in the right direction. And I feel like we should know within the next couple of weeks where that stands. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah, and I kind of agree with John and Chevy regarding that finish. By the way, I just want to touch on that super quick. I know you guys are talking about it. I know Hamlin has done some pretty wild things over the years, and he's certainly never been afraid to put his bumper to somebody. I definitely, what we saw with Austin Dillon there is the extreme. I've never seen a driver pinball 2 drivers coming to the finish line to win before. That's different. So as much as Hamlin,
I've seen someone get wrecked, and then the guy that gets wrecked collects other guys because there's nowhere else for people to go. This wasn't that. This look, in terms of NASCAR, I know a lot of you have come over from watching SVG in supercars. my dad will still use this term, although it's not used a lot in NASCAR anymore. The fact is the rules haven't changed enough for it to not still stand, and that is rubbing is racing or bumping is racing, and it's fair play. If you don't think Austin Dillon's going to get it back, he is definitely going to get it back
Yep.
at some point in time. The problem for the rest of the field is it might be on a super speedway that collects 20 other cars. So um, we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, though, in terms of risk reward, they were barely a top 30 car in points,
Yeah. And that's
and
what Danny said. He
now,
gained 20 spots.
yeah, and now they're in the chase, or the chase. Sorry, old term, the playoffs, and now all their partners are going to get all that extra coverage because come playoff time, it's all about focusing on the cars that are in the playoffs
Yep.
during your broadcast. And for their partners, it's massive for them. It's massive
Yep.
heading into the playoffs. It's massive for the beginning of the playoffs, and you know that gives them now a different goal heading forward. They get looking at those first three playoff races now far more than the rest of the regular season. And all of a sudden, Austin Dillon's not impossible to make it out of round one.
Yep.
So it's, and by the way, don't sleep on Austin Dillon for having a chance at winning Daytona. He's a good super speedway racer. That the RCR the ECR engines, if you will. So RCR, Kaulig, Trackhouse, all those cars perform very well in the draft. Um, so something to look forward to for sure. Do we think NASCAR should be pending this? No, I don't. This is how NASCAR's been. This is just the more extreme end of it, as Ryan pointed out. It's a
And
lot.
NASCAR is self-policing too.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have any coverage anymore. It's ended up here in Canada. Ryan
Yep.
probably still has coverage, so if anything happens in the next few minutes, he probably has it. But they switched over to Canadian football the first chance they had. So, um, look, for the Kaulig Racing fans in here, um, big things ahead for the team. Apparently, I'm always kind of glass half empty with them because we've been promised so much in the past. It does seem like the Eckes stuff is done.
Yep.
So I'm expecting that, but I could very well see this being, Daniel Hemrick, AJ Allmendinger, and Cup with Eckes, Williams, and Dye being the Xfinity team. It wouldn't shock me if that's as much change as coming. It just sounds like from as many people out there that are more in the know than us and our ability to connect the dots that it's a lot more than that coming.
Yep. That's how I feel about it as well. I definitely think that, it's easy to sit here and think, yeah, we got some good news, right? Christian Eckes is coming on board. And then it's like, yeah, we're going to clean the house and we're going to get everybody. It's probably not going to work out the way we want it to, but I definitely see some, a couple moves that are going to enhance the program at the Cup and the Xfinity level. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And at the end of the day, the results on track, obviously, it's great that they're making moves with the drivers, but we have to see the results on the track. And nights like tonight, we're still clear that Kaulig has a long way to go, especially on these short tracks. So that's the part that we just kind of keep pumping our brakes on, and even watching some of these other teams, there's still a clear gap that needs to be found in terms of raw speed. So, but nonetheless, I'm super excited about the direction of where they seem to be going, and I hope they get these announcements done. I'm tired of waiting on them, but
my guess is the next 2 or 3 weeks. You might get it this week, but I really do think the way the Bruce thing happened kind of put everything back. In terms of Eckes, I have no doubt part of it was can I get the truck championship, locked up, sealed, and delivered before we go announcing any of this stuff. But like the couch racer guys, Brett Griffin's one of them. Pretty locked in on Kaulig stuff. Brake Hard's a very accurate YouTube channel. There's been some other places that have put it out there. Bob Pockras has been connecting Eckes to Kaulig for 2 years now. Again, though, he thought it would be a cup ride. It sounds like that's not the case yet, but I'm really excited to see if we, the Sam Mayer thing's the interesting one. I won't be heartbroken if Mayer isn't there, but you can really change the complexion of your team moving forward. On the SVG front, all signs seem to be pointing to him going Cup racing with Trackhouse next year. And if not, I got to tell you, I don't think he'd be at Kaulig in the Xfinity series. It sounds like Kaulig is full. So
Unless he is part of the full roster, which is possible.
yeah, well, then you would assume Zane just takes the Trackhouse ride, right? So
Yeah.
there's still dominoes to fall, but I think the most obvious one is SVG is going Cup racing, and Zane Smith, if he's to stay with Trackhouse, is probably going to Kaulig Racing, which basically becomes a seat warmer job for Christian Eckes for a year, and then it'll be interesting to see if Kaulig pulls in a Sam Mayer. I mean, there's other young prospects that they might be looking at as well, but Sam Mayer seems to be the one that there might be some smoke behind. Don't sleep on Harrison Burton, Brandon Jones, as we mentioned earlier. Um, the Daniel Dye is another one. I think Ryan's point earlier, though, about him having one more truck year, especially without Eckes there. Without there's other guys getting promoted. Who are the other ones going up that we heard? Gray is probably going up. Eckes is probably going up. Swalich or whatever. Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but yeah. So there'll be an opportunity for Dye to be more competitive even than he is this year.
Oh, and Tanner Gray, one of the Gray brothers, are going up.
So Dye's not like a lock to go up, but he's got some funding, right? So, and if it comes down to Dye or Williams, like I mentioned earlier, I'm putting Dye in the car, even if it means losing what support Williams brings, which I think is some, but I don't think it's the amount that a typical Xfinity driver brings, if you will. I think Kaulig was desperate to get in a guy with funding, especially after, remember, it's not just this year that they're dealing with the funding issue. There was the catastrophe behind the Landon Castle stuff too, right? So,
good point. They lost, I'm sure, a lot of money on that deal.
Yeah, I'm sure it helped when Chandler got bought out. And there's another guy don't sleep on. Like, he's with Gibbs now, but there is no Gibbs opening that's going to open up that's going to allow Chandler Smith to go get that ride. Don't sleep on Chandler Smith being an option for 2311 if Corey Heim isn't in terms of funding. So, and if not 2311, I would assume Chandler's going to pursue every option he can to get into the Cup Series, because it's one of the reasons why he left Kaulig. He was not happy that he wasn't considered for a Cup ride, and also had a chance to go to JGR Equipment in Xfinity. So lots of moving pieces still. The sooner we get these announcements, the better. Look for a couple of videos from us during the week. Being we did a 2+ hour stream tonight, it'll probably be the tail end of the week before we get anything out, because we're going to need to see if anything more comes from the rumor mill, man. We've done the race, but any final thoughts on this? Actually, before we get there, I mentioned earlier that we will continue to do SVG stuff, even if he has no association with Kaulig and isn't running Kaulig Xfinity races part-time next year even. There will be some sort of like SVG report weekly in our videos for the SVG fan base that has come and supported our channel. We like SVG. We love road course specialists too. I got to emphasize to all you need to be patient with him in Cup. Obviously, if the option tire becomes a thing past today, that will help him. But there's just races where Trackhouse even is running 20s, right? And there's going to be weekends where you're going to have to swallow 30th place finishes, but the payoff will be worth it if they're running 6 or 7 road courses, and he'll be the more time he gets on super speedways, he'll be competitive in an ECR engine.
Yep, I agree. I think and listen, this is why we think AJ is going back Cup racing with Kaulig, and why SVG is likely going to Trackhouse, is they are going to have several opportunities to win their way into the playoffs. And even if he runs 25th week in and week out during the regular season, you get one of those magical wins on a road course, just like we saw with Austin Dillon tonight, right? He was willing
tonight's
to
a perfect example of it.
Yeah, he was willing to clean house to get a win tonight because now he's in the playoffs. That's all it takes. You win and you're in. And NASCAR is not going to they're not going to step in. They're not going to take this win away. Like, you do what you have to do to get to victory lane. And we know SVG races clean, and he's going to be a smooth operator on those road courses. So I'm excited to see him and those opportunities going forward. And I do think it's going to be a very exciting debate week in and week out with not only him but the dinger at these road courses. So final
it's
thoughts.
Not going to be clean come playoffs, man. Like,
it's not clean.
We know AJ, how AJ is, and come, I'm not saying it's right, but come playoff time, is Watkins Glen in the Xfinity playoffs? I don't think it is.
Nope,
I think
just
it's
the Cup.
Charlotte. So come the Roval, a place like the Roval on restarts, if they're both trying to advance, AJ will run you up into the outside wall on a restart. Just ask Ty Gibbs.
Yeah, he'll do what he has to do. And that's what makes AJ's strength is his restarts, especially on the road courses. Obviously SVG is quite skilled. But there's no question that AJ's not willing to use his bumper and use every inch of the road to get what he needs to get accomplished. So especially at the Roval, that's his playground. He's going to win the Roval, no question.
Yeah, AWS, one of our avid SVG supporters here who doesn't like our AJ Allmendinger support. Hey, at the end of the day, man, SVG's 3 wins on the Xfinity road courses have been just on fire. The pace that he has managed has been incredible. AJ and SVG, though, are both in for a challenge at Watkins Glen, an easier road course where it's probably going to feature multiple Hendrick cars. It seems to usually feature multiple Hendrick cars, and equipment matters. It just does at those tracks, and they're going to be in tough at a place like that against Hendrick, against Gibbs. And make no mistake about it, AJ Allmendinger, until SVG can pass him in the amount of wins, is king of the road courses, especially in the Xfinity Series. The unfortunate part is SVG probably won't get the chance to pass him in the Xfinity road courses for a long time, because SVG is more than likely going Cup racing next year, and I don't know if Trackhouse is even going to want him in an Xfinity car because of the amount of attention that he's going to have to pay to learning the oval. And like the other half of your opinion here, where it kind of sinks, man, is let me know when SVG can hold a candlestick to Allmendinger on ovals, and then we'll have a talk. Until that can happen, we're far way off from that. That being said, if you're asking me to bet on a one race driver in the Xfinity Series, because I'm sorry, outside of the street course, SVG has not shown it in Cup Series road courses. I bet on SVG. You'd be stupid to not bet on SVG. What he did at Portland, what he did at Sonoma, Chicago is a bit of an anomaly, if you will. SVG's incredible. He is. Kaulig is a bunch of gold right now with those two in the organization, and it's why Trackhouse is going to promote him, right? If you have 6 or 7 kicks at the can, like Ryan was saying earlier, you have a chance to make the playoffs. It's a lot harder to win in the Cup Series, though, than it is in the Xfinity Series. And I guess that'll be the next question is, will option tires become a thing on road courses?
That would be the next logical step. We see it in F1. So that would be, I definitely think I don't think we'll see it this year. Probably not even next year. I think they're going to more focus on the short tracks. But if this continues to be a success, and tonight was a success, make no mistake about that, we're going to start seeing them everywhere, if you want my humble opinion. I think it's going to get to a point where we're going to have at least 2 tire compounds week in and week out. And there's no reason not to. Maybe the exception will be the super speedways, but they're coming, and they're probably about to become a main fixture in the sport. NASCAR is always evolving, and that's part of it. So that's going to change the complexity everywhere, not just here at the short tracks.
It was a wild success today, and I'm the guy who said to Ryan earlier this week, I have no interest in watching Richmond, and I watched practice yesterday, and I was like, oh, This might actually be worth watching. And kudos to NASCAR. They do a lot wrong. The way they're handling the charter agreement, which will be a whole other live stream we do, is a joke. Teams are getting screwed hard with that. And also the charter agreement, though, you would think some sort of charter agreement's going to come, even if teams get strong armed into something that's not super favorable. Is why Kaulig can probably take a chance on a guy like Eckes or a guy like Mayer, or guys that don't have as much funding as other drivers, and probably why AJ Allmendinger goes up to Cup again, and Daniel Hemrick probably finds himself out of a ride.
Yeah. It sounds like we don't have a lot of clarity on that front, and we can touch on this down the road. But it sounds like they have a framework in terms of money figured out, like percentage wise. Now it's just a matter of how long the charter is going to be good for. Are they just 7 years? Or are they going to try to? Obviously, they want permanent charters, but they'll probably have to take a 7-year deal with an increase in money. So, and if that's the case, Kaulig's going to be in good shape because the 7 years is a long time in this sport. And as long as they're getting that money aspect that we've talked about, that'll help them tremendously. So I think that's going to be the compromise. And I think they've got a pretty good picture on that front now. So I feel good about that.
Final question of the night here from John, or comment. I have my own take on this, but yeah, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, he has adapted to ovals pretty well. Obviously, again, we talked about this a lot. Adapting to a 15th place finish in Xfinity versus going to Cup racing is night and day. 15th in Xfinity is, frankly, should be guaranteed for Kaulig, whether it's AJ, whether it's SVG, whether it's Josh Williams. There's no reason to ever finish worse than 15th in the equipment that they have. So, yeah, yes, he's making good strides, and I have been impressed with how he's improved throughout the races. But once he makes that jump to Cup and he qualifies 27th or 30th, he's going to have a lot harder time to get up into the top 20. It's just so competitive. Even the midfield in Cup is so competitive that while he's going to continue to improve, and he will improve, I do think the results are going to not be that good. So it won't be horrendous. I don't see him running 30th or worse every week, but I definitely think there's an improved SVG is still 20th to 25th week in and week out at the Cup level.
Yeah, people just have to be patient. Hey, AJ was there. AJ's still there some weeks, and he has two things working against him. Equipment is one. Ryan and I talked about it briefly. Like, Trackhouse has not lit the world on fire. Yeah, Suarez and Chastain were good tonight. Suarez with some great strategy call, but everyone needs to understand that when you get to the Cup Series, 23-11 is an exception because of how close they are with Gibbs and Denny's connection there. But like Trackhouse, they're not in the same category as Hendrick, as Gibbs, as 2311, as Penske. They're not those teams, which means not only are you working from I know people get annoyed with the Kaulig equipment. I understand it. This guy has held them more accountable than most people do. But Trackhouse has not been all that much better than Kaulig this year. When you have Allmendinger in that car compared to when you have Suarez in that car, their average finish, Allmendinger's was better until the last two races. Allmendinger's was better than Ross Chastain's until the last two records at Pocono and Chicago in terms of the races that he's won. Trackhouse has taken a step back this year. So's everybody that's in that RCR, ECR fold altogether. We're not shitting on SVG when we say, hey, he's probably going to run 20th to 25th, some weeks 30th. We're not talking that on a road course. He's probably going to be a top 10 guy every road course he goes to. Super speedways, once he gets the hang of drafting and gets more confidence, because look, there's a level of fear with anybody when you're going 200 miles an hour and 30 of you might wreck, or you might have a Ryan Preece wreck like last year. God forbid that happens to anyone. That's always in the back of your mind. AJ said it himself. Equipment's a disadvantage, and the issues with the car and I mean for everybody in the Cup Series, there's a downforce issue with that car that makes it way harder to pass than it should be, which is why what Allmendinger has done in the Cup Series and road courses has been impressive, because he's someone that hasn't been affected by that nearly as much as other guys, including the guys that race for the top tier teams. Um, the option tire will help. It adds strategy to it. We don't know how many other tracks are going to get this option tire. I don't know if they've mentioned that or not yet, Ryan.
Yeah,
For
they
all
haven't
we
yet.
know, yeah, for all we know, this is it. I hope it's not. Goodyear needs time to develop a tire, obviously. Hopefully it's not. They may not want an option tire in the playoffs. Um, One would think it'd be more prominent next year, but the fact that the car itself is flawed and everybody's talked about it are issues that SVG is battling heading into next season. That's not his fault. That's the car's fault. The car looks great, sounds great, but it's flawed, and that's why you have something like the option tire coming out at Richmond to try to beat that. I think SVG will be impressive as hell. All I'm asking is the fan base to be a little patient with him, because there's going to be weeks where you're going to want to pull your hair out.
Yes.
All right,
I agree.
That is going to do it for us tonight. Ryan, thanks for doing this tonight, man. It was a lot of fun. 2.5 hours in the books. I can't believe we got an entertaining Richmond race and it didn't feature SVG or AJ. No, sorry. See, like, he's not used to driving those type of cars. It's not the same as supercars. Supercars are not flawed with a downforce issue that makes it almost impossible to pass, is what we're saying. SVG is also not used to running on ovals. Yeah, I understand that you're having that take, but I'm sorry to say this, you are wrong. It's not the same. It should be the same. That was NASCAR's fucking goal, but they screwed up somewhere in the development of the car. Final thoughts?
Yeah,
on
they
this,
screwed
Ryan?
up because it's an oval. The the car races a lot like as if supercars ran on ovals. But the fundamental car, he can drive the car. The car, I hate the word use easy, but the car is very relatively easy to drive for these guys at the top of the game. But it's easy for everyone. It's easy for all of them. And that's what you see with lap time being so close when 5th through 25th is only 0.3 apart. You can't pass when 20 cars are running the same speed, guys. And yes, he's going to feel good with the sequential shifter. And yes, the bigger tire and the single lug and all of the electronics that come with the next gen. Those fit SVG. He will be comfortable in the car. That's great. But it's going to be incredibly difficult for him to make passes. And unless you're starting consistently in the front, it's just a bloodbath. Getting from 25th to 15th is a chore. And when you add in the fact that he's still got a long way to go on learning the ovals, it's all cumulative, and he is going to have weeks where he impresses, where he might pull up to an Indianapolis next year and run top 10. He will have good races, but week in and week out, it doesn't matter how comfortable he is in the new car. The new car itself is fundamentally flawed. The under aerodynamics don't allow them to get air. Listen, one thing about the next gen car, the Xfinity car with the spoiler, right? You can get up to their rear bumper, and when you get up to their rear bumper, it takes the air off the top of the spoiler, and that car goes up the track. You can make a pass. The next gen car, all the air is underneath it, right? And when you get to the left rear of that car, you're not disrupting the air on top of it. It's all underneath. That's what the diffuser does. The diffuser keeps all the air low to the ground, and it makes them stable. It makes them stick to the track. It's just fundamentally hard to pass in these cars, guys. That's all we're saying.
I got 2 predictions. I'll end on this note. One, as long as SVG is going Cup racing next year with Trackhouse, he will make the playoffs. He will win on a road course somewhere. I mean, AJ should have last year. He did. He just didn't do it till the playoffs. And 2, to give you an example on the oval learning curve, Christian Eckes will do better than SVG has this year on ovals for Kaulig by a sizable margin, is my two predictions. That's not a shot at SVG. It just takes time. You got to remember, SVG has to learn an entirely new driving style with his feet while driving on the ovals. It's something that the other guys don't have to do. And the more SVG gets comfortable with that, the better that he will be. We're not SVG haters. We like the guy. I think we get a little too much criticism for just honestly uh, being straightforward with our take. We want him to be successful. I want to talk this time next year about SVG being in the Cup Series playoffs and whether he can advance in it or not. Um, that's what I want. I hope it happens. But I also hope, like I just said, and like Ryan was saying, that you guys are ready for Ryan and I to be right on the weeks where he is running 30th and can't get up to even 25th at times. Because guess what? The car is flawed, and the odds are they're never fixing it. They've invested way too much money into this car to, and by never I mean the next 4 or 5 years. This is probably your car that you're dealing with, and their fix for it's going to be like we saw tonight, option tires. And while that might be an option for short tracks and maybe eventually super speedways, that's never going to be an option on short tracks and road courses. That's never going to be an option on mile and a halfs and super speedways.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna see more of this, right? It's NASCAR refuses to add horsepower. That's not the cure all. That's not the answer to every ill
It could
of
help a
NASCAR.
little.
But it would help, but they're not going to do it. It doesn't seem like. So the way for them to do it is tire wear is the big one. We'll see, I think, this on short tracks. They'll eventually figure out the gearing ratios. They'll figure out a way to cut back on the shifting, which will help as well. But these are the fixes we're going to have to work with, because the car, while I do expect them to continually adjust the car, just like with the previous generation with the front splitter, they couldn't fundamentally change that aspect of the car. That was so crucial to the whole dynamic. It's the same thing with this rear diffuser with the new car. It's too fundamentally important to the car that they can't change it. So they're kind of stuck in that box until they move to a new generation, which will be at least 3 or 4 years, if not longer.
All right, if you haven't yet, please take a moment to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all to keep up to date with all of our content. Really appreciate all of you. I mean, some of you guys are, I believe someone said it was like 9 a.m. when we started this thing, so it's around lunchtime for some of you guys way across the pond over there in Australia and New Zealand. And I know we got some people in the UK that are in here right now, and we have a few Americans in here and a couple of Canadians. And just we really appreciate you coming out tonight. I said to Ryan, I wasn't sure what to expect off of a really no notice live stream, and I think it's been a wild success tonight, and we'll let you know when we're able to do it again. And just thank you for participating in this and supporting the channel. I know 11:55 a.m. East Coast Australia. Honestly, I know the thumbs up thing might be annoying that we ask it. And if you're watching this right now and not logged into an account, log into an account, click the thumbs up, leave a comment. It helps us out a ton. Again, it costs money to be able to do this content. So in order for us to gain traction, you know, liking things, commenting on things, eventually super chatting and doing memberships whenever we get all that stuff set up, will help us out a great deal. But for Ryan, I'm Sean. Hopefully not too long till we see you on another live stream, because we have a charter deal to talk about and what it could look like. And, you know, more content to come and more race coverage to come. So, Ryan, I'm Sean. We'll see you next time. Keep a smile on that face.
Thank you, everyone. It was a lot of fun tonight.
I'm trying to log us off, I swear, and I don't have my laptop beside me anymore, so I'm looking at tiny little squares. All right, that's going to do it for us. Take it easy. Colleague, make some damn announcements so we can talk about it publicly.